Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, India once again condemns rising loss of lives in Gaza during a UNGA briefing, reiterates the two-state solution, calls for stepping up humanitarian aid. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates and lays foundation stones of multiple rail, road, petroleum, aviation and natural gas projects worth around $820 million in the Indian state of Telangana. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets South Korean Prime Minister and other top officials in Seoul ahead of the 10th India-South Korea Joint Commission meeting on Wednesday. And on Super Tuesday, millions are polling in over a dozen American states to choose their Republican and Democratic presidential candidates. Well, first up on News Hour, India has once again expressed concern over the loss of civilian lives in the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. At the United Nations General Assembly, briefing on the Gaza crisis, on the right to vote India again voiced support for a two-state solution and condemned terrorism in all its forms. Let's take a look at this report.
Once again condemned the loss of civilian lives in the ongoing conflict. At the United Nations General Assembly briefing on the Gaza crisis, India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, once again emphasized India's position on the conflict. She highlighted the worsening humanitarian crisis and termed the rising civilian deaths as unacceptable.
India has a long-standing and uncompromising position against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. There can be no justification for terrorism and hostage-taking. As such, we demand the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. It is imperative that humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza be scaled up immediately in order to avert a further deterioration in the situation. We urge all parties to come together in this endeavor. India has provided humanitarian aid to the people of Palestine and will continue to do so. India is committed to support a two-state solution where the Palestinian people are able to live freely in an independent country within secure borders with due regard to the security needs of Israel.
India underlined, once again, its unequivocal condemnation of terrorism in all forms and manifestations. Ruchira Kamboj further called for a two-state solution and emphasized that such a solution would protect the integrity and sovereignty of the people. India also stressed that humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza be scaled up immediately and further deterioration of the situation averted. Meanwhile, despite Israel's decision not to send a delegation, Hamas and Egyptian mediators are going ahead with the talks in Cairo on securing a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel has declined public comment on the Cairo talks or its decision not to attend. Israel decided to skip the talks after Hamas refused its request for a list of names of all alive hostages. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And US Vice President Kamala Harris on Monday urged Israel to craft a credible humanitarian plan before conducting major military activities in Rafah. She made this call during a meeting with Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz. She also pressed Israel to take more measures to get aid into Gaza. Gantz is also likely to meet US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday. Let's now take you across live to DD India's Sarah Coates, who's joining us from Tel Aviv to get more on these developments. Good afternoon, Sarah. Now, is there any movement towards a ceasefire or de-escalation of hostilities on the ground between Israel and Hamas, in keeping with the kind of statements being made by India and other countries at the UN or even in Washington, D.C. by the Vice President, the US Vice President?
Hello there, Gordon. We are hearing, according to these mediators who are having these talks there in Cairo, that there is some quiet optimism of a potential breakthrough in these talks. But at the same time, Israel and Hamas, they are trading blame for stalling these negotiations. Israel has, as you mentioned in that report, been asking for a list of captives that do remain alive in the Strip. Hamas has been saying that this is simply something that it cannot provide at this time due to Israel's intense bombardment of the Strip. It says that it doesn't know where all of these hostages are. It doesn't even know if they are alive because they are being held by potentially other factions like Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So as I said, certainly some careful optimism on the ground. It really isn't being shared, though, here in Israel with the families of these hostages, extremely worried. They've been protesting day after day, calling for the Netanyahu government to do some sort of a deal to bring these people back. We do need to remember that they've been in captivity now for more than 150 days. There's really been a lack of information coming in about these hostages, many of them who suffer serious illness. So, of course, this is a huge concern, especially given that we've been hearing also from the Israeli military that it believes that quite a large number of these hostages are dead. But at this hour, these negotiations are continuing in Cairo with a lot of hope that there may be some sort of a breakthrough in these talks before the Muslim holy month of Ramadan begins.
All right. You mentioned Cairo, and a lot is being made of the absence of any Israeli representation at these talks. Has the Israeli government made it absolutely clear as to why it's staying away?
What we've been hearing there, Gordon, from senior Israeli officials is that the delegation wasn't sent because of this list, that Israel has been demanding, that it needs to know which captives are still alive. And as I said, Hamas said it absolutely doesn't know which ones are alive due to the bombardment campaign. But at the same time, Benny Gantz, he is in Washington. This is certainly something that he is discussing with senior US officials today, really trying and bridge these gaps, these sticking points with Hamas to get these people home, to get some sort of a ceasefire in the Strip, at least a pause in fighting to get these people out. And this, of course, is what we are hearing there from India, from the United States, that there needs to be a pause in fighting. There needs to be an immediate ceasefire, not only to get these hostages out, but of course, to address the dire humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. We saw just last Thursday what happens when aid actually gets to parts of the Strip like the north, which are very underserviced at the moment due to the military operation, that people are just so desperate that once this aid hits the ground, they'll do anything basically to get it from these trucks. So it certainly is an extremely pressing issue, and this is just why we are seeing so much international attention also from India on the issue.
All right, Sarah, let's hope that these differences can be resolved and we can get a clearer picture on what is the real situation with the hostages that the Hamas holds, so that a ceasefire is a possibility. Thanks for joining us for the time being. Now, the Israeli embassy in India on Tuesday expressed deep shock and sadness at the death of an Indian national in northern Israel in an alleged terror attack. It said, and I quote, "We're deeply shocked and saddened by the death of one Indian national and the injury of two others due to a cowardly terror attack launched by Shia terror organization Hezbollah on peaceful agriculture workers who were cultivating an orchard at the northern village of Margeliot yesterday early afternoon. Our prayers and thoughts naturally go to the families of the bereaved and those of the injured. Israeli medical institutions are completely at the service of the injured, who are being treated by our very best medical staff. Israel regards equally all nationals, Israeli or foreign, who are injured or killed due to terrorism. We will be there to support the families and offer them assistance." Meanwhile, the Israeli army has released aerial footage of its military strikes in southern Lebanon. Some of the Israeli targets were hit in response to rockets intercepting over the border area on Monday morning. Also, the Israeli military said that the UN aid agency UNRWA in Gaza employed over 450 military operatives from Hamas and other armed groups on Monday. The Israeli army spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said Israel has shared this intelligence with the United Nations.
Over 450 UNRWA employees are military operatives in terror groups in Gaza. Over 450. This is no mere coincidence. This is systematic. Donations that are meant for humanitarian purposes, meant to benefit the people of Gaza, are funding mass murderers and rapists. We send the information that I'm sharing now, as well as further intelligence, to our international partners, including the UN.
Houthi rebels are trying to escalate the conflict in the Gulf of Aden with their recent decision. Houthi minister on Monday said that ships will have to obtain a permit from Yemen's Houthi-controlled Maritime Affairs Authority before entering Yemeni waters. Houthi rebels have repeatedly launched drones and missiles against international commercial shipping in the Gulf of Aden since mid-November. And now let's talk about another conflict. Ukrainian military intelligence on Tuesday said that its sea drones damaged the Russian Black Sea Fleet patrol ship off occupied Crimea. The intelligence agency said on Telegram messaging app that a special unit Group 13 attacked Russian patrol ship. Ukrainian sea drones damaged Russian patrol ships near the Kerch Strait. Andriy Yermak, President Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff, said that the Russian Black Sea Fleet is a symbol of occupation and cannot be in Ukrainian Crimea. He further said that the Russian ship was worth about $65 million. Reportedly, train traffic was temporarily stopped on the bridge linking the Crimean Peninsula to the Russian mainland. And the Russian Defense Ministry on Monday said that its forces had hit Ukraine's US-made fighting vehicles in various directions, while Ukraine said it had attacked Russian battlefields. Russia said that it destroyed 2 tanks provided by the United States to the Ukrainian army, 4 infantry fighting vehicles, Ukraine's ground control station of unmanned aerial vehicles, downing multiple drones. While the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said that 63 combat engagements took place in the past 24 hours with Ukraine, launching attacks on multiple Russian personnel and military equipment concentration areas and air defense systems. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Triumph for Donald Trump in the US Supreme Court ahead of Super Tuesday. France becomes the first nation to include the right to access abortion services in its constitution. And the European Union reaches new plastic deal aiming to ban single-use plastic packaging by 2030.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, the US Supreme Court has ruled that states cannot exclude Donald Trump from voting ballots. The former president has thanked the court for ruling in his favor, calling the judgment a big win for America. This comes after a court in the state of Colorado ruled Trump should be disqualified from re-election as the 6th of January attack on the Capitol building amounted to insurrection. Nick Harper reports from Washington, D.C.
America's highest court took up the case after Colorado ruled that Trump's name would not appear when voters cast their ballots on Super Tuesday. A court in the state said last year that the former president was constitutionally unfit to hold office again. The Colorado judges relied on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which says a person should be barred from office if they've been involved in insurrection. And Colorado took the opinion that the January 6th Capitol attack should be classified as such. However, the 9 Supreme Court justices viewed it very differently. In a unanimous ruling, they said that states may disqualify a person from holding state office, but have no power to prevent a person holding federal office, especially the presidency. The former president reacted on social media, writing in capital letters, "Big win for America." He also spoke at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida.
The voters can take the person out of the race very quickly, but a court shouldn't be doing that, and the Supreme Court saw that very well. And another thing that will be coming up very soon will be immunity for a president, and not immunity for me, but for any president. If a president doesn't have full immunity, you really don't have a president, because nobody that is serving in that office will have the courage to make, in many cases, what would be the right decision, or it could be the wrong decision.
He'd earlier predicted that a ruling against him would bring chaos and bedlam to the United States. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said the state should be able to bar oath-breaking insurrectionists from the ballot. The Supreme Court's decision is being seen as the most consequential since the 2000 election, when it essentially handed the presidency to George W. Bush by ordering the vote recount in Florida to stop, denying Al Gore. The court's judgment also overturns similar ballot bans on Trump in the states of Maine and Illinois, and on challenges in a further 14 states, which are still pending. Trump remains the likely candidate to become the Republican Party nominee to challenge Democrat Joe Biden for the White House in November's presidential election. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And his Republican rival Nikki Haley held a campaign rally in Spring, Texas on Monday. The campaign comes ahead of Super Tuesday, where voters in 15 states and 1 U.S. territory will participate in nominating contestants in the Republican presidential primary. Haley won the Washington, D.C. Republican primary last Sunday, her first victory in the nomination process.
For Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. We lost in 2022. But look, 2 weeks ago, Republicans lost the vote on Mayorkas. They lost the vote on Israel. The RNC chair lost her job, and Donald Trump's fingerprints were on all of it. How much more losing do we have to do before we realize maybe Donald Trump is the problem?
Now, millions of Americans are heading to the polls on Tuesday, that is today, in more than a dozen states to vote for their preferred presidential candidate. Super Tuesday, as it's known, is a defining moment in the campaign, and this time it could make Donald Trump the presumptive Republican Party nominee to take on Joe Biden again for the White House. Benji Hire explains.
Well, it's upon us, the biggest day of this year's primary battle, one that could ultimately decide the candidates for the presidency. Donald Trump leads that race for the Republicans. The former president, vying for the Oval Office for the 3rd time, is in pole position. On a rocket, he says, to clinch the nomination, having won all but one of the contests in past weeks. And on Tuesday, Super Tuesday, he's the favourite to take all 15 states, leaving his rival for the nomination, Nikki Haley, with a potentially irrecoverable deficit. The former South Carolina governor and former US ambassador to the United Nations is vowing to stay in the running for now. Mr. Trump was given a major boost this week after the Supreme Court here in Washington ruled he can remain on the ballot. Some states have tried to get him barred for inciting an insurrection following the 2020 election, which he lost. He faces multiple criminal trials related to those efforts to overturn that election and his alleged mishandling of classified documents, having pleaded not guilty to those charges. Despite vocal opposition from his own Democrat Party base, incumbent Joe Biden, the current resident of the building behind me, is set to win his primary votes. Polls show, I should say, a November face-off between him and Trump would be very tight. In Washington, Benji Hire for DD India.
France has become the first country to enshrine the right to access abortion services into its constitution. Lawmakers and senators overwhelmingly approved the changes in a rare joint session of Parliament at the Château de Versailles. The time limit has since been extended to 14 weeks, with the cost of the procedure covered by the National Health Insurance System. DD India's Ross Cullen reports.
The Congress has adopted the constitutional bill on the freedom to have access to abortion, as approved by the 3/5 majority of votes cast.
Majorité requise pour l'adoption du...
Well, the historic vote took place on Monday at the Château of Versailles. It was a joint session of Parliament, which is a pretty rare event. MPs and senators coming together to vote, more than 900 parliamentarians in the famous former royal palace, voting on whether or not they wanted to enshrine the right to access an abortion into the French constitution. And this policy had easily passed the lower house in January, it passed the upper house in February. This was the final parliamentary hurdle and it cleared it with an overwhelming majority, 780 MPs and senators combined voting in favour and just 72 against.
Nous pouvons changer le cours de l'histoire.
Women's body are nothing but an empire of their freedom and their free will. And ladies and gentlemen, not a tool for a project that is not their own.
Léguée, celle d'appartenir à un peuple.
Notre constitution n'est pas seulement la base de notre ordre juridique.
Our constitution is not only the basis of our judicial order, it is a foundation of our republic, the reflection of our values, and so the freedom to have access to abortion has its place in it, and the world guaranteed ensure that it will never be put into question, not the facts, not as a law, not today, not tomorrow, not by anyone, never.
Par quiconque.
Abortion has been legal in France since 1975, and some on the right said there's no immediate legal or judicial threat to the right to access pregnancy termination services. But lawmakers in the left and centre looked at what happened in 2022 in the United States when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which overturned the constitutional right to access abortion services. And they said we can't risk that happening here in France. We want to go further than just having abortion as legal. We want abortion access to be constitutionally protected. The next stage and the final stage will be President Emmanuel Macron on Friday carrying out the official signing ceremony. It will be March the 8th, and that is no accidental date. That will be this year's International Women's Day. Ross Cullen in Versailles reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, abortion rights activists gathered in central Paris cheered and applauded as the Eiffel Tower sparkled in the background and displayed the message, "My body, my choice," after French lawmakers voted to inscribe abortion into its constitution. After the vote results were shown on a giant screen in front of the Eiffel Tower, women's rights activists and supporters of the bill cheered and danced while Beyoncé's Girls blasted in the background. Let's now take a look at some of the other updates coming in from around different parts of the world. The European Union reached a new plastic deal on Monday. The deal aims to ban single-use plastic packaging formats by 2030. This includes plastic wrapping of fruits, vegetables and other in packaged items in supermarkets, restaurants and hotels. The agreement also sets packaging reduction targets from 5% in 2030 to 15% by 2040. Vietnam's largest financial fraud case on record began its trial on Tuesday. The trial accuses real estate tycoon Truong My Lan and her accomplices of siphoning off $12.46 billion from the country's largest bank by assets, Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank. Thousands are expected to be summoned and about 200 lawyers are participating in the proceedings. The International Fund for Agricultural Development President Alvaro Lario visited the Solomon Islands. The tour included observations to see how the UN agency is supporting communities dealing with frequent extreme weather events, including cyclones and flooding. The visit also comes at a critical juncture amid a global food crisis and with millions of people unable to afford a healthy diet. And China's Heilongjiang province was illuminated on early Monday as northern lights turned the dark side red and green. Also known as China's North Pole, the event captivated visitors coming all the way to the city. NATO has kicked off its military exercises in the Nordic countries with more than 20,000 soldiers participating in the war games. Among the co-hosts are Finland, the newest member of the 31-nation military alliance, and Sweden as well, which is about to become its 32nd member. Ishan Garg has more from Brussels, where NATO is headquartered.
The war games are part of NATO's wider exercise Steadfast Defender 24, aimed at showing the group's military prowess as a deterrent to Russia. The broader war games involve more than 90,000 troops and is the biggest NATO drill since the Cold War. 20,000 soldiers from 13 countries are participating in the Nordic part of the exercise. Officials say the aim is to improve coordination between the forces. Norwegian military officials say these exercises have become crucial in the current circumstances. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Nordic countries have become increasingly wary of their own security. Finland, which shares a 1,340-kilometer-long boundary with Russia, and Sweden, which borders Finland, applied for NATO membership in 2022. Finland has since become a member, while Sweden is expected to join in soon as its membership was finally approved last week. Military officials say the area around the Arctic, also known as the High North, is among the most difficult terrains to guard. This is why these drills, now known as the Nordic Response, are crucial to ensuring preparedness in conflict situations. They involve more than 50 submarines, some aircraft carriers and amphibious vehicles at sea, and over 100 combat and cargo aircrafts. Thousands of soldiers are on the ground and they're using artillery systems, tanks and tracked vehicles during the exercise. NATO says it currently does not foresee a direct threat from Russia, but it's not holding back on projecting strength either, especially as military intelligence officials say Moscow is set to rapidly ramp up its military presence along NATO borders in the next decade. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Haiti's neighboring countries have initiated bolstering their defenses and withdrawing embassy personnel as gang violence intensified and many fled ongoing clashes. Following a state of emergency declaration and nightly curfews in Haiti, triggered by a prison breakout and a gang leader's call for the Prime Minister's removal, concerns grew among Haitian residents in Miami about the escalating violence and persistent gang conflicts gripping their homeland.
It shouldn't be like that. Human beings should live in a peace, not in a crime like that. It's terrible. It hurts. It hurts all Haitian that lives over here. We're all diaspora. It hurts us. You know, it's really sad.
North Korea's defense ministry on Tuesday called for halting joint military drills of South Korea and the United States, labeling them as war rehearsals. South Korea dismissed North Korea's claims, affirming the defensive nature of the drills aimed at deterring North Korean provocations and aggression. Both the countries began annual spring exercises on Monday with double the troop participation compared to the previous year, seeking to improve responses to North Korea's evolving nuclear and missile threats. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The Philippines charges China's Coast Guard of engaging in risky maneuvers after a mid-sea collision. And India's election body launches the C-Vigil app for voters to report any electoral violence or malpractice ahead of the nation's general elections.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Before we go any further, another look at our top stories. India once again condemns rising loss of lives in Gaza during a UNGA briefing, reiterates two-state solution, calls for stepping up humanitarian aid. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates and lays foundation stones of multiple rail, road, petroleum, aviation and natural gas projects worth around $820 million in the Indian state of Telangana. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets South Korean Prime Minister and other top officials in Seoul ahead of the 10th India-South Korea Joint Commission meeting on Wednesday. Also on Super Tuesday, millions are polling in over a dozen American states to choose their Republican Democratic presidential candidates. Well, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the southern state of Telangana on Tuesday. During his visit, the Prime Minister laid the foundation stones and dedicated to the nation development projects worth over 6,800 crore rupees or around $860 million. The projects cater to sectors like roads, rail, petroleum and natural gas. He also inaugurated and laid the foundation stones for 3 national highway projects. Furthermore, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the Civil Aviation Research Organization Centre or CARO in Hyderabad city. The PM stressed that CARO will leverage the boundless skills, talent and passion of Telangana's youth, and it will give India's civil aviation industry global recognition.
सेंटर से हैदराबाद और तेलंगाना को एक नई पहचान मिलेगी। इससे तेलंगाना के युवाओं के लिए एविएशन सेक्टर में नई उड़ान के रास्ते खुलेंगे। इससे देश में एविएशन स्टार्टअप्स को रिसर्च और स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए एक प्लेटफॉर्म मिलेगा, मजबूत धरातल मिलेगी। आज भारत में जिस तरह एविएशन सेक्टर नए रिकॉर्ड बना रहा है, जिस तरह पिछले 10 वर्षों में देश के एयरपोर्ट की संख्या 2 गुनी हुई है, जिस तरह इस सेक्टर में रोजगार के नए अवसर बन रहे हैं, इन सभी संभावनाओं के विस्तार में हैदराबाद का यह आधुनिक संस्थान अहम भूमिका निभाएगा।
Earlier, Prime Minister Modi also visited Ujjaini Mahakali temple in Sikandrabad city. The PM offered prayers at the temple. The temple is believed to be 191 years old. Prime Minister Modi wished for the prosperity of the countrymen in the temple in Mahakali. And the day also saw the Prime Minister flagging off the first multimodal transport system train service that's between Ghatkesar, Lingampalli and Mola Ali Sanatnagar. The long-awaited train service extends the popular suburban train service in Hyderabad-Secunderabad Twin City regions to new areas for the first time. It connects the new areas in the eastern part of the city like Cherlapalli and Mola Ali with the western part of the Twin City region.
तेलंगाना में रेल सुविधाओं को बेहतर बनाने के लिए इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन और दोहरीकरण का काम भी तेज गति से हो रहा है। सनत नगर मौला अली रूट पर दोहरीकरण और इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन के साथ 6 नए स्टेशन भी बनाए गए हैं। आज यहां से गढ़केसर लिंगमपल्ली के बीच MMTS ट्रेन सर्विस को भी हरी झंडी दिखाई गई है। इसके शुरू होने से अब हैदराबाद और सिकंदराबाद के कई और इलाके आपस में कनेक्ट हो जाएंगे। इससे दोनों शहरों के बीच ट्रेन यात्रियों को बहुत सुविधा होगी।
And during his visit to the southern state of Telangana, Prime Minister Modi also addressed a public gathering in Sangareddy city. Addressing the gathering, the PM reiterated that dynastic politics is against democracy. Adding further, he stressed that the nation's development was obstructed due to such dynastic political practices.
मैं इन लोगों के परिवार के खिलाफ, परिवारवाद के खिलाफ आवाज उठाता हूं। मैं सही करता हूं, नहीं करता हूं। आप जम्मू कश्मीर से लेकर तमिलनाडु तक देखिए, जहां जहां परिवारवादी पार्टियां राज कर रही हैं, वो परिवार तो मजबूत हुआ, लेकिन वो राज्य बर्बाद हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ है? वो परिवार मजबूत हो गए, वो राज्य मजबूत नहीं हुआ। जब मैं परिवारवाद का विरोध करता हूं, जब मैं कहता हूं कि परिवारवाद लोकतंत्र के लिए खतरा है, जब मैं कहता हूं कि परिवारवाद नई टैलेंट को उभरने नहीं देता, जब मैं कहता हूं कि परिवारवाद युवाओं का अवसर रोकता है, तो ये लोग जवाब नहीं देते हैं।
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Tuesday held a meeting with Prime Minister of South Korea, Han Duck-soo, in Seoul. Dr. Jaishankar appreciated the South Korean Prime Minister's positive sentiments for the ties between the two countries and valued his guidance ahead of the 10th Joint Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday. Dr. Jaishankar also met South Korea's Trade, Industry and Energy Minister An Dok-gyun in Seoul. The two leaders held wide-ranging conversations on trade and economic cooperation set at the heart of the India-South Korea relationship. India's Foreign Minister held discussions with think tank representatives of the Republic of Korea, highlighting increased exchanges as convergences between the two countries continuing to grow. After concluding his visit to South Korea, Dr. Jaishankar will travel to Japan from the 6th to the 8th of this month for the 16th India-Japan Foreign Ministers Strategic Dialogue. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated the new administrative and training building of the Naval War College in Goa. The building will help the institute to train officers from all three military services 3 times more than its current strength. While addressing the event, the Defence Minister stressed that trade has increased via sea routes post-globalization. He said that the Indo-Pacific region has emerged as a hub for goods and trades.
ग्लोबलाइजेशन के बाद से जिस तरह से देशों के बीच आपसी व्यापार बढ़ा है, गुड्स और ट्रेड्स बढ़ा है, उसमें आप देखिए तो गुड्स एंड ट्रेड्स सबसे ज्यादा सी रूट से हो रहा है, और सी रूट में भी स्पेशली इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन तो एक तरह से हब बनकर इमर्ज किया है। गुड्स के इसी बढ़ते हुए ट्रेड की वजह से कई सारे थ्रेट्स भी इमर्ज होकर सामने आए हैं, जैसे पायरेसी और ट्रैफिकिंग की घटनाएं प्रायः देखने को मिलती हैं। भारतीय नौसेना की तत्परता से उन घटनाओं में भी कमी अवश्य आई है, लेकिन उनके थ्रेट्स को अभी भी नजरअंदाज नहीं किया जा सकता।
As India heads into polls in the next couple of months, the Election Commission of India has announced that it is going to launch an app, that is an application called C-Vigil, Citizens Be Vigilant. The application will help people report any violence or irregularity during the elections.
Application is C-Vigil, Citizens Be Vigilant. इसमें आपका सहयोग खास तौर से हमें चाहिए. अगर कोई भी व्यक्ति शिकायत हो रही है, कोई गड़बड़ी हो रही है, अगर कहीं कोई हिंसा की तैयारी हो रही है, कहीं कोई पैसा बांटने की तैयारी हो रही है, लीकर की तैयारी है, ड्रग्स की तैयारी है, इरेगुलर टाइम में कैंपेनिंग हो रही है, तो इस एप्लीकेशन से या तो लिखकर या तो फोटो खींचकर हमें भेज दें. जहां से भी भेजा गया वहां का लोकेशन हम खुद से ले लेंगे, उसके लॉन्गिट्यूड और लैटिट्यूड से, और विद इन 100 मिनट्स हमारी टीम जांच की वहां पहुंचेगी, जांच करेगी, एक्शन लेगी और ये बताएगी भी कि क्या बात सही थी, पार्शियली सही थी और उस पर क्या एक्शन लिया गया.
Voters can also see if the candidates they are voting for have criminal charges against them or not through the app as well.
Another very important right which the citizens have to know your candidate. किसी कैंडिडेट का अगर कोई क्रिमिनल बैकग्राउंड है तो इस एप्लीकेशन में उनकी फ़ोटो, उनको क्या क्या उनके ऊपर में क्रिमिनल एक्टिविटीज़ हैं, इस सबका पता लगेगा. कैंडिडेट को 3 बार न्यूज़पेपर में ये एडवर्टाइजमेंट भी देना है कि मेरे ऊपर क्रिमिनल चार्जेस हैं. पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को भी ये बताना है एडवर्टाइजमेंट के थ्रू अपनी वेबसाइट पर दैट वो ऐसा कैंडिडेट क्यों नहीं चुन पाए जिसका क्रिमिनल बैकग्राउंड ना हो.
Let's now get you some other updates from around the country as well. A parliamentary delegation from Denmark led by Speaker of the Danish Parliament, Søren Gade, called on Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, at his residence on Tuesday. The meet comes as the two countries mark 75 years of diplomatic relations. The discussion centered around enhancing cooperation between the two nations. Indian Coast Guard ships Samarth and Abhinav departed from port of Colombo on Tuesday. The ships were on a visit to strengthen maritime cooperation between India and Sri Lankan Coast Guards. The two Coast Guard ships engaged in several activities including firefighting, damage control and maritime pollution response. And the Indian Meteorological Department has forecast a fresh spell of rain and snowfall over the western Himalayan region from Tuesday till Thursday. Light to moderate rainfall is likely over Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Gilgit, Muzaffarabad, Himachal Pradesh and over Uttarakhand. The Government of India's three-dimensional approach to wipe out left-wing extremism has shown a significant decline in Naxalite violence. According to government data, cases of violence have reduced by 52% and the number of deaths by 69% from 6,035 to 1,868 in the decade of 2014 to 23 as compared to 2004 to 2014. A total of 195 new camps have been established in the red zone. Cases have been given to the National Investigation Agency to probe. Special task forces have also been constituted. The Ministry of Home Affairs has taken special attention in 70 districts for detailed monitoring. According to the MHA's data, incidents of left-wing extremism have reduced from 14,862 to 7,128. The number of deaths of security forces have declined by 72% in the last 10 years. Civilian deaths declined by 68% from 4,285 to 1,383. Along with this, the number of police stations reporting violence decreased from 465 in 2010 to 176 in 2022. The Philippines on Tuesday alleged that China's Coast Guard engaged in risky maneuvers resulting in a collision between a Philippine Coast Guard ship and a Chinese vessel during a resupply mission from Philippine troops in the South China Sea. China's Coast Guard responded to allegations by stating that it implemented control measures against Philippine vessels that unlawfully entered waters near the Second Thomas Shoal, a contested atoll in the South China Sea. China plans to raise its defense spending by 7.2% this year, marking a continued surge in military budget growth during Xi Jinping's tenure. This increase, consistent with last year's rate, exceeds the projected economic growth, which is 5% for 2024. More so, China has toughened its stance on Taiwan, omitting a peaceful reunification from Premier Li Shang's government work report in the National People's Congress. Japan has expressed its concern over possible threat posed by China's rapid military expansion. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi called China's military expansion a serious concern for Japan and the international community.
China's military trend are a matter of serious concern to Japan and international community. They mark the greatest strategic challenge to date in ensuring the peace and stability of Japan and the international community, and in strengthening the international order based on the rule of law. I believe we should respond by leveraging our comprehensive national strength and cooperation with our allies and like-minded countries.
Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Manet and outgoing Indonesian President Joko Widodo. This was during the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit in Melbourne on Tuesday. The three-day summit, celebrating 50 years since Australia became ASEAN's first external partner, aims to strengthen relations with the rapidly growing region amidst China's expanding influence. And still to come up on DD India News Hour. The UEFA alters Champions League format from 2024 to 25, 36 teams to participate in a single league phase. Former Indian cricketer MS Dhoni leaves fans guessing with his rare social media post about his new role for the upcoming season of Indian Premier League.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis and more.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Bitcoin continues its ascent to a new two-year peak of $68,828 that puts it within spitting distance of an all-time high. However, most Asian stocks slid on Tuesday due to sharp declines in Hong Kong as the start of China's week-long annual session of Parliament disappointed investors with its lack of big-ticket stimulus plans to sustain the surging, rather struggling economy. On the other hand, back home, the Sensex and Nifty opened flat on Tuesday. Sensex opened 104.87 points, while Nifty inched 34.30 points up. India stands a great chance of becoming a $5 trillion economy, says the leading private banker of the country. Speaking at the International Conference on Transparent Financial Reporting and Audit Quality in Delhi, Uday Kotak Mahindra claims that India has an edge over China thanks to the structural reforms taken by the Modi government. DD India's Vishal Baristo finds out more.
From a fragile 5 to a resilient economy, aiming at becoming 5 trillion economy. And for that, the corporate governance is going to play a very important role. And I have with me Mr. Uday Kotak Mahindra. Let's talk to him and find out. Sir, now we have come a long way and still a long way to go. But corporate governance has to be the key factor.
I think India is transforming, India is aspiring, India is growing. We need to ensure that as we grow, we have the appropriate guardrails and get a balance. the processes of governance must be strong for entrepreneurs. At the same time, the entrepreneurs must be given the freedom to grow. We got to get that balance between freedom to fly, but fly with appropriate checks and balances.
So you've just compared our neighbor and you've said that thanks to the government, now the whole system is quite clean and we stand at an advantage. What makes you say so?
I think India's macroeconomic situation has been made very positive. I must congratulate the government, the Reserve Bank, all the other regulators, and of course the practitioners for making India's economy where it is, along with making the financial sector very strong. I'm very proud about where India is today, and it is now has the opportunity to really scale and grow.
So one last question. Since you come from the banking sector, how do you see the role of banking sector, especially the private banking sector?
I think I am a great believer that financial services will be the key to India's growth aspiration. And we need to build capacity in terms of both knowledge, skill and size in the Indian financial sector to meet the aspirations of the Indian economy. Thank you.
So there you heard Mr. Uday Kotak Mahindra. He says that we need to focus more on capacity building, and India definitely has a very bright future thanks to the steps taken by the government. With cameraman Mukut Sharma in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo by DD India.
Now, the 5th edition of the National Youth Parliament Festival 2024 is currently underway in New Delhi, in which more than 25 participants are representing young India at the national podium. Deepika Mahato has more.
हमें रुकना होगा ना हमें झुकना होगा। विकसशील भारत में तो जन्म लिया है, मगर विकसित भारत में ही मरण लेना होगा। आज हमें यही प्रण लेना होगा, यही प्रण लेना होगा।
Unity in Diversity once again gains momentum at the 5th edition of National Youth Parliament Festival 2024, where young participants echoed the rhythms of democracy and the importance of unity. The two-day event is witnessing representation from all over India. The participant who came to New Delhi's parliament to talk about youth at the helm not only represented their state with colourful cultural attires, but their speeches enveloped the road to unity, diversity and Vikasit Bharat or developed India. Speaking on the opening of the event, Meeta Rajiv Lochan, who is the Secretary of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, emphasised on the role of the youth in democracy.
When we look at chief ministers in India today, we see that at least 1/3 of them became chief ministers in their late 30s and early 40s. So in every way, India is led by young people. And in fact,
speaking on the importance and uniqueness of the event, the young participants said that they don't see this competition as a challenge, but as an opportunity to represent the state and ensure inclusivity with a vision to make India developed, ensuring active involvement of the youth.
We are all here for My Bharat. So it's not challenging, it's a learning experience for all of us, being a part of the historical place where the constitution was made, the Samvidhan Sadan. We are all so happy, we are learning, we are connecting with each other.
The young participants also urged first-time voters to come out in large numbers and be a part of this festival of democracy at 2024 elections.
तो हम सारी युवाओं की ये अपील है कि प्लीज़ जाइए और वोट कीजिए, अपने घर से बाहर निकलिए और अपने अधिकार का पूरा इस्तेमाल और सही इस्तेमाल कीजिए.
Today we see that unity in diversity is here only, and we are absolutely thank you so much sir and all the government agency and whole the government of India. Thank you.
And there you heard the entire youth which are representing different parts of the world, states and union territories of India in showcasing diversity, how beautiful the democratic setup of India here is. They are all set to represent their states at the National Youth Parliament Festival's 5th edition. With camera person Pramod Negi, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from New Delhi.
And time now to get you some sporting updates with my colleague Anil Thomas.
Well, thank you, Gautam, there for those for that handover. Starting first up with UEFA, where UEFA on Monday announced a new and exciting format of the 2024-25 edition of the Champions League. From the 2024-25 season onwards, 36 clubs will participate participate in a single league phase instead of the present group stage format where 32 teams are divided into 8 groups of 4 teams each. The change will be known as the Swiss model. Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelch confirmed his retirement on Monday after a 13-year National Football League career, during which he established himself as one of the best in the position and endeared himself to be the team's fan base. Kelch, the older brother of Kansas City Chief tight end Travis Kelce, won a Super Bowl in February 2018, earned 7 Pro Bowl sections, and was named a first-team All-Pro 6-time in an NFL career span, where he entirely played for the Eagles. Former Indian skipper MS Dhoni, who led Chennai to their 5th IPL title, hinted at a new role in a rare social media appearance ahead of the upcoming Indian Premier League season. Dhoni took to social media and expressed his excitement about the upcoming season, while also dropping a hint for a new role, leaving fans in speculation. Senior England batter Joe Root is hugely impressed by Indian off-spinner Ravichandran Ashwin's range, aggressive mindset and relentless pursuit of wickets. Root heaped praise on the 36-year-old, saying that the veteran spinner is a constant threat who hardly believes in the concept of wearing the opposition down. He said, Ashwin is always trying to find ways to get you out rather than trying to wear you down over long periods of time. He usually creases differently from traditional off-spinners and uses overspin, side spin, and can get tight to the stumps and can go wide, and has also got the carom ball in his armory. A lot of different tricks. Former World Championship bronze medalist Sai Parneet announced his retirement from his badminton career. The 31-year-old shuttler, who ended India's 36-year-old drought at the World Championship medal in 2019, said he is happy with what he's achieved in his career. He also represented India at the 2020 Tokyo Summer Games. Well, that's all from the world of sports. Back to Gautam for more updates.
Thanks a lot, Anil. And a village in Vietnam is getting attention for a lot of emerging millionaires. The village, hosting the ethnic Nungan people, cultivates coffee that sustains the entire village. Over the past decade, farmers have profited in thousands of dollars from coffee beans. Now, with coffee prices at their peak, the village may see the emergence of more millionaires. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.